Florida, Georgia, one of the best rivalries in college football, of course, and one we all look forward to as a neutral site matchup each and every year in the SEC Eastern Division. But has it lost some luster? We will discuss with David Waters from Gators Breakdown, and of course, head on over there, whether it be here on YouTube or your favorite audio platform. That's Gators Breakdown. David, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Mark. How about you?
I'm doing well. So Dan Mullen took over, and he's upgraded the program step by step, year by year. This would be the first time, correct me if I'm wrong, that this game did not mean the SEC Eastern Division lead control of the division.
Yeah, and you bringing that up, I believe it's the first time it's not a top 10 matchup since Dan Mullen's been head coach of Florida, if I'm thinking correctly here. And this is also the first time in program history Florida's facing the number one team twice in the season. Alabama earlier this season and Georgia coming up this Saturday. So playing two number one, that's as far as AP right now. So that's the stipulation there, but still, hold some weight there going against Alabama earlier in the season, Georgia now. SEC East, mathematically you're still in it, of course, but we know, this is not for the SEC East like it has been, Mark, the last few years, like you said. Florida, a little bit, probably should be in a little bit of desperation mode, should be playing for pride here, not necessarily playing for much more than that. So still a rivalry game. You're still playing the number one team in the country. No matter if it was Georgia or not, you get up for playing the number one team in the country. It just happens to be your biggest rival at the same time this year. So, playing for pride, playing a little bit of spoiler here for Florida. It's kind of the storyline of this game for the Gators. So we'll have to, rally the troops, play the best team in the country, best defense in the country. And, of course, Mark, I was talking on Twitter, social media this morning, of course, talking about the Florida quarterback situation, but Georgia's kind of got one of their own. You could see four quarterbacks in this game between the two teams here.
If I remember right, we might have seen at least three quarterbacks last year, maybe four. I don't remember exactly. But Stetson Bennett, that was pretty much his game start to finish.
Yeah, Trask, Emory, I believe, did get some play last year, and then Stetson Bennett, and then DeJuan Mathis.
DeJuan Mathis may have come in, and
he did.
Yeah.
So you did see four last year as well.
Florida, Georgia, David Waters, Gators Breakdown.
Yeah, four quarterbacks taking meaningful snaps here.
Yes, yeah, for sure. So it's Florida at 4-3, could come out of this at 4-4. Wow.
Yep.
Georgia, of course, 7-0. You mentioned Georgia's the number one team in the country, and I don't remember a time that we hit the halfway point in the season and there was a team that there was really no debate. They're the best team in the country. And nobody's really debating it. Not that people aren't saying, okay, Alabama on the right game will obviously get its shot in college football playoff. Couple teams out there, maybe. But, man, this defense, I think we really got certainly on from opening night against Clemson. And the Clemson offense has been nothing close to what it's been in the past, of course. But still, you hold a team to 3 points. And then the Arkansas game that was really the one that woke me up to, man, this defense just doesn't even let offenses get the play started. Like, they wreck half the plays before they get started. How do you look at that matchup in regards to Florida's offensive line handling that front four and front seven? And if there are any matchup opportunities, advantages that you see for the Gators?
Yeah, Mark, that is what this game will be about. I do think Dan Mullen can probably scheme up something. I don't know if his offensive line will give him a chance to. I think that's where I'm probably leaning with this, just because of how dominant that Georgia that defensive line is, those linebackers, that front. However they want to line up, they're multiple. They'll go front six, they'll go front seven. They'll mix it up a bit. They don't have to blitz a whole lot just because of how dominant they are up front. And I'm interested because I do believe Anthony Richardson will get some playing time. Maybe even start, maybe a whole lot more playing time this week, more so than he has so far this season. And teams have come at him with some pressure so far in the last couple of weeks. I asked Dan Mullen about that, Anthony Richardson, and how defenses are playing him, because he tests the ball down the field. He opens up this Florida offense, and it's not even comparable as far as when you start looking at the numbers of how more explosive this offense is with Anthony Richardson compared to Emory Jones. But in order for it to be explosive, he's going to have time to throw. And that's going to come down to this Gator offensive line trying to block this Georgia defensive front. And that is the biggest matchup question here. Florida can hold serve up front, and it's not going to be consistent, but can you hit the explosive play? I think that's where how many explosives can Florida hit? You're not going to – Florida's got a ton of 10, 11, 12 play drives this year. You're not doing that. You're not driving 10, 11 plays, 75 yards against this Georgia defense. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to hit your explosive plays. That lends itself to Anthony Richardson playing more, hitting Jacob Copeland down the field, hitting these receivers down the field, but it starts up front. If you can't have the time to throw, if you can't have the time for the explosive to develop, I'm not so sure Florida's going to be able to hit them. So that is the biggest matchup question right here, Mark, is no matter who's quarterback, those front five for Florida's got to block that front for Georgia.
And David, when we flip it from offense to defense, we're looking at a Georgia team that has.
Do we have to? Do we have to, Mark?
We're going to. We're going to hold you to it. You got to. We bring you on here for the tough questions, David, because I can't answer them. So you got a four-headed monster at running back for Georgia, as they typically do. I think they've narrowed it down a little bit more, but basically 4 guys have gotten the carries this year, and we know they're all 4 and 5 stars. We know the names, and we got the offensive line. We're talking experienced offensive line, super talented NFL players. We know the deal. Last time Florida was on the field was against LSU, an LSU rushing attack that basically hasn't done much against anybody.
Yep.
And then Ty Davis-Price goes wild, sets records. Wow. The formula just looks awful. And that's why you don't want to talk about it.
It does, Mark. And maybe you're hoping for something like what happened with Florida LSU, maybe something that you don't expect to play out. Maybe it plays out that way. Football's been weird in 2021, but that's what we're talking about. We're talking about something that has to happen that you don't expect to happen. And did we really expect Florida to be in that situation coming in this Georgia game? You're looking for something that's kind of just going to be off record, off key, for a reason Florida can win this game. And look, Georgia's had a lot of success, minus last year, but there was a lot of early success before Stetson Bennett got hurt. A lot of success versus Todd Grantham's defense. Since Dan Mullen's come and Todd Grantham was defensive coordinator. If I'm remembering right, Mark, I'm trying to think. 18, it was a 10-0 lead for Georgia. 19, I think it was a 10-0 lead for Georgia. They got a 14-0 last year. You're not getting down to this Georgia defense and coming back. So it's imperative that, Florida's defense shows up early in the game, more so than they have in recent years. And you look at what you mentioned, and the last time Florida's defense was on the field versus LSU, a team that didn't run the ball all that well coming into the Florida game. Surely didn't run it well versus Ole Miss last week in the game after Florida. Yeah, they had nowhere near that production outside of the Florida game. So it doesn't, it's not trending well for Florida. Florida had done okay in stopping the run up to that point versus LSU. Held Alabama less than 100 yards. Kentucky's run game had some success, but not their normal success that they have had throughout the season when they played Florida there. So you've been able to point to a little bit of metrics for this Florida defense that, they've improved. But, Mark, for me, it was always. I don't care what you do versus FAU, USF, Vanderbilt. The season was always going to be, Mark, what do you do versus Alabama? What do you do versus LSU? And what do you do versus Georgia? 0-2 so far. And a defense – very slow start versus Alabama earlier this year. Complete bottom fallout versus LSU. And now what do you do versus Georgia? A very consistent offense, an offense that's very balanced, an offense that can take their shots because of how that run game gets going. And if Todd Grantham doesn't have an early game plan, Florida's going to fall behind early on again, and you're not coming back on that Georgia defense.
David, I know I mentioned to you a number of times during the offseason, my thought on Florida football was that it was one of the biggest wild cards in the nation for me. And you just mentioned another one for me was LSU during the season, where I thought, okay, because of the talent on the roster and because of what we've seen before out of these programs and these coaching staffs and this particular head coach, sure, they could bust out and be back to where we expect those programs to be, or they could fall back and be an ugly kind of 7-5, 6-6 kind of season. Florida's jumped back and forth so many times with me, where I was projecting an 8-4 team. Then, of course, they played the couple cupcakes out of the gate. They show us a lot against Alabama and got a lot of people thinking, oh, Georgia, Florida might be a really good game. And now they've faltered here. Do Florida fans look at this situation with trying to catch up with Georgia? Now, Georgia, for the past 4 to 5 years, since Kirby Smart's second season, has been near the elite of college football. We've seen that in isolated spots under Mark Richt, but Florida's the one with the national championships. You don't have to be that old, as long as you're in your 20s, you remember Florida winning national championships. Georgia, none. 1980. We've got 3 with Florida in the last 25 to 30 years. Okay. Does this dynamic bother Florida fans that we're supposed to be there? They've been generally where we've been over the course of, most of our fan base's lifetime. And we've been contending and winning national championships. When are we going to get back there?
Yeah, Mark. I mean, that's why Dan Mullen was brought. When he was brought here in 2018, it was, okay, how long is it going to take to close the gap to Georgia? I mean, you knew when Dan Mullen was hired, there was a gap. There was no question there was a gap. All right, so when Dan Mullen, who coaches Mississippi State, he coaches them up. They're very competitive in the SEC West. All he needs is more talent. I mean, pretty much that's what the summary was, right? All he needs was more talent. Well, he had some Jim McElwain leftover talent that he won 10 games with and 11 games with and finally won the SEC East with in his third year. So he's got his players now, his recruited players, his quarterback that he signed in 2018. This is his 4th season. This is his team in his image. And they've faltered, like you said, to a 4-3 record right now. And look, there's different things you can point to. There's metrics out there that says Florida's a top 10 team, the S&P and all that thing. Florida, with the way their metrics, no, don't get me wrong, eye test and actual results matter 10 times more, of course. It doesn't matter what all those metrics say, but they say with the way Florida has played this year, they have played like a top 10 team. They just come out on the losing end of games. So, razor thin margin. Todd Grantham talked about it last night there with us. You look at different points. And Mark, that's probably the most disappointing part. There were things you were able to point to in Dan Mullen's tenure that would be the difference. Maybe the talent's not quite on the Alabama, Georgia level, but there are things you could point to where that would make up the gap. Well, it's those things this year that are faltering Florida. Does Florida recruit as well as Alabama and Georgia? No. So the other aspects have to be up there. The game management, the clock management, personnel decisions, how you act in the fourth quarter in close game situations to come out on top. Florida's not getting those small things done. The lack of attention to detail, special teams, turnovers. I mean, the things you've always been able to count on under Dan Mullen. Yeah, we knew there was a talent gap. I mean, we knew they were replacing a whole bunch of NFL talent from last year, but that's not the reason Florida's 4-3 right now. It's one of the reasons, and a lot of people thought that would be the top reason, but it's probably 5th or 6th down on the list compared to all the other aspects that I sit here and just listed that you thought you'd be able to count on to close that gap versus Georgia, and you're not getting that from Dan Mullen and his team in his 4th year.
We knew where the obvious hot seats were from a coaching standpoint when the season started, and 2 of them have come through, LSU and USC. Shoot, we saw it. Matt Wells at Texas Tech get fired the other day. He's 5-3, just lost a 1-point game. He was that close to being 6-2 at Texas Tech. Yeah. So some of them come as a surprise. Guys 8-14 coming into the season. He goes 5-2, loses a 1-point game and gets fired. Dan Mullen and his job security, where do you think that stands?
Nothing's going to happen in 2021 unless he wants it to. You go by the first couple years and winning the SEC East last year. Now, don't get me wrong. He has to make changes. He has to be able to adapt. He has to look in the mirror, and it can't trend the way it's looking right now. You cannot bring back Todd Grantham. You have to make some decisions on other members of the coaching staff to help. Recruiting's got to get better. We know that. That starts with assistant coaches. Can Mullen break away from guys he's been around for so long, as like offensive line coach John Hevesy and running back coach Greg Knox? Billy Gonzalez, wide receiver coach, has been around for forever around Dan Mullen. He's one of the best recruiters on staff at the wide receiver position, one of the best developers on staff. You've got the perfect package in Billy Gonzalez, but you don't have it everywhere else. So, of course, it starts a defensive coordinator. When that comes, you'll probably have a bunch of defensive assistants as well. You've got to make a change at defensive coordinator. Now, a lot of Gator fans, if Dan Mullen's not willing to make that change, a lot of Gator fans will say goodbye, Dan Mullen, because you're not winning with what you have on staff right now. That change will be made, Mark. I think that's pretty much a foregone conclusion. You cannot move forward in that regard. And then you look, if we want to fast forward a little bit, Florida's best chance to do anything in 2022 is with Dan Mullen leading the charge. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If Anthony Richardson's your quarterback, you identify that the rest of the season, you develop him getting ready for next year, and if he lives up to the potential, a lot of us think he has, Florida's got a special quarterback next year. So that's why a lot of people wanted to see a defensive coordinator move last year. You use this year as kind of that transition class, and you build up to 2022. Now you're kind of chasing your tail on defense. You may have the offense next year, but much like 2020, it could be a special offense, and now a defense that's under a first-year defensive coordinator with the transition time. Now, I think you could have your pick of pretty good defensive coordinators to come in and say, okay, that's a pretty good situation. We know that offense is going to be good. That head coach might be on the hot seat a little bit, but if I can go in there and change that defense, there's some big things that can happen for Florida in 2022. So, it stinks. We're sitting here Florida, Georgia week and already looking forward to 2022, but that's just kind of the reality of it right now. It's that conversation's been had. Where's Dan Mullen at, and where the program's headed, and the direction is all about him making change. And if he won't make the change, then a lot of fans want somebody that will.
Folks, please like the video, share these videos out on social media. Also, keep in mind that you can shop Amazon by using the link that we provide in the description section. Same shopping experience for you. Doesn't cost you a penny, but it helps us grow the channel. Follow David at Gators Breakdown right here on YouTube and also on your favorite audio platform. David, we always appreciate you stopping by, and hopefully you can enjoy the game Saturday.
I'll do my best, Mark. Thanks, man.